This is Tech Tuesday, where we shine the spotlight on a trending theme in the world of technology and gain a better understanding of where trends are leading in the world of tech investment. This is Tech Tuesday, presented by the Canadian Securities Exchange. Thank you to everyone joining us live today for this week's edition of Tech Tuesday. Today's session, Medicine Precisely, nominated by US Angels and presented by the CSE, the exchange for entrepreneurs and the world's fastest growing small and mid-cap stock exchange over the last 15 years. We are pleased to have this week's sponsor, US Angels, and they have nominated 3 companies. Eran Agmon, CEO and co-founder of Sensifree, Dr. Andrew Ury, CEO of ActX, ACTX, and David Blossom, President and CEO of Skope, Inc. The moderator of today's session is a man who needs no introduction, Mr. Mark Francis, but before we dive in, Mark has a few words to say about US Angels.
So for those of you listening, US Angels is really quite a remarkable angel investor group based in the States. It operates virtually. It works with all the other angel groups in the US and syndicates deals. The CEO, or the man who runs it, John Ritchie, reviews something in the order of 100 to 200 deals a month, and then they pick their best 5 or 6 to show every 2 weeks. If you are a serious tech investor, then you should probably participate. usangels.co is the website to go to, and I would encourage you to do so. Excellent deals, well curated. Thank you, Barrington.
Thank you, Mark. And Mark is not lying. I've been to a few meetings. Fantastic. Our objective in running Tech Tuesday is twofold. First, for companies to gain visibility and traction on an accessible platform. The second is to inform capital markets players and investors about these types of companies in the US Angel space, while also providing new knowledge of what is happening. For you, the attendees, we do ask that you share ideas, leads, possible funding, and feedback with our presenters. You may even have a strategic potential partnership, and you can find their information on the profile box, which is located on the right-hand side. We might refrain from giving management advice unless we are truly experts in the company's particular field, and please do not treat the companies as marketing targets for services. Yes, I am looking at you. You know who you are. Some housekeeping matters. If images aren't clear or pictures are incomplete, check your bandwidth, refresh your screen, call your IT, or try a different platform, as we are broadcasting on LinkedIn, YouTube, and, of course, AirMeet. This presentation is for information purposes only and is not a solicitation to make an investment in either shares or debt or to buy and sell stock. If you are interested in the investor pitch, please connect with the companies directly, or you can email media@thecse.com. Each company will have a 7-minute presentation. After all companies have presented, we will move to the Q&A. Today we have as presenters Eran Agmon, CEO and co-founder of Sensifree, Andrew Ury, CEO of ActX, and David Blossom, President and CEO of Skope, Inc. But first, let's start with Eran. Eran Agmon, CEO and co-founder, Sensifree. He's been leading it since its inception. He's a veteran of the technology industry with over 25 years of experience in various companies, both mature and startups, in which he held executive and senior level positions in corporate development, product strategy, and management. Eran brings with him proven experience in developing new businesses from scratch with strong multidisciplinary technical background. Eran holds a Bachelor of Science degree from the Tel Aviv University. Prior to founding Sensifree, Eran worked at Gilat Satellite Networks, not Gillette, Gilat, Gilat. He also worked at Camaro Tech and Raysat Antenna Systems. Sensifree is a medical device company on a mission to change how patient monitoring is done in hospitals. Initial focus is on technology for advanced hemodynamic monitoring that seamlessly integrates with current clinical practices. They expect to receive their first regulatory clearance in the next several months.
Good afternoon. I'm Eran Agmon, CEO and co-founder of Sensifree. So Sensifree is a medical device company with a vision to become a new standard in hospital patient monitoring. Now, patient monitoring is truly the backbone of medical practice. And surprisingly, this field have seen only little innovation over the past several decades. You're looking here at a picture of one of the latest models from Philips, a prominent player in this space. It has the same functionality, same concepts of operation as a Philips monitor from 20 years ago, and particularly, it still does not provide answer to some important clinical needs. And Sensifree, we are changing this, starting by focusing on one of the most important unmet clinical needs. And the next few slides will explain where we're coming from. So it's a little known fact, but well documented, that about 2%, 1 out of 50 patients, dies within 30 days from surgery. If 30-day post-operative mortality was a distinct disease, it was the third leading cause of death in the US and pretty much around the world. Now, people are dying from different reasons post-surgery, but the primary reason is cardiovascular complication that leads to systemic complications and mortality. Now, recent studies have shown that there is a very strong association between episodes of low blood pressure during surgery and cardiovascular complication. Now, this is very important. Blood pressure is a vital sign that can be modified, can be controlled by the anesthesiologist. Now, the question is why this is happening. And it's happening because anesthesiologists who are in charge of keeping the well-being of a patient during surgery do not see the blood pressure of their patient in real time. And this is happening because in the vast majority of surgeries, blood pressure is still monitored using a cuff, the same good old inflatable cuff that all of you are familiar from your doctor's office. And it's not surprising that the intermittent measurement provided by the cuff misses trends and critical events. So we are targeting this need and developed the world's first PPG-based continuous non-invasive blood pressure monitoring system. Now, when I'm saying PPG, I'm talking about a sensor that looks like this. It's very well-known sensor, usually used for pulse oximetry. We're using it to deduce continuous blood pressure. Our system is fully compatible with the current medical practices. Doctors do not need to change anything in the way they work and operate. It operates alongside existing monitors, so no equipment need to be replaced. In fact, we capitalize on existing assets in the hospital, and it's affordable, which is probably one of the most important things when developing a medical device. The product is clinically validated in clinical studies that we carried out in the ICU and operating room. We are pending FDA and CE clearance. We hope to get the CE mark within the next couple of months. FDA it's going to take a little bit longer. They're much slower. The field that the application that we're targeting within the medical within the patient monitoring space is pretty much a blue ocean opportunity. There's a huge untapped market there. There are very few and not very successful competitors in the market. We estimate this opportunity in the US and Europe alone in almost $2 billion a year. We build this estimate bottom up through the number of critical care beds, ICU stays, number of surgical procedures, and so on. And with our advantages in pricing, performance, and simplicity of use, we see this market growing beyond our core perioperative application into other places in the hospital, to general ward monitoring, providing early warning for patients that may deteriorate within a few hours. And then there are even other spaces outside the hospital treating all kind of conditions where having information about blood pressure has a huge importance in treating such patients before they deteriorate. Our revenue model is simple and straightforward. We either lease or sell the equipment. There is also an optional disposable sensor that goes along with it. And we have an OEM product, which was developed in order to get into other people's product, for example, existing patient monitors. So we can generate additional revenue by cooperating with strategic partners. Our team Ilan Barak is our CTO. We know each other for like 30 years, if not more. Together, we founded this company. Yinon is our head of R&D with a lot of experience in development of medical devices. We're privileged to have Professor Art Wallace and Dan Sessler from the VA hospital and clinic, respectively. These guys here are not just to decorate my slides. They took a very active part in the product development and clinical studies. And finally, we're in a stage of raising a bridge funding for the next 9 to 12 months to complete our regulatory process, start sales, and preparing for raising our Series B. Thank you very much.
Now we have Dr. Andrew Urey. He is the CEO and founder of ActX, one of the leading companies in precision medicine. Dr. Urey helps lead the product and science teams at ActX and has published on Genomic, Decision Support in Genetics and Medicine, the leading clinical journal in genetics. Previously, he founded one of the first electrical medical recording companies, Practice Partner, which was acquired by McKesson, a Fortune 15 company. He's also a co-founder of PPRNet. Dr. Urey did his residency at the University of Washington and is a graduate of Stanford Medical School and Yale University.
Hi, I'm Andrew Urey, and I'm here to talk about ActX, the leading platform for precision medicine. So when you see a doctor and they give you a medication or a prescription, the first thing they usually say is to let them know if the drug doesn't work or causes side effects. And that's called trial and error therapy. What ActX is about is transforming that into targeted therapy, where you're much more likely to get the correct drug the first time. So why is precision medicine genomics so important? The reason is that medications often don't work and frequently cause side effects, and why there are many reasons why. One of the important reasons why they don't work or cause side effects is your genetics. And if we knew your genetics, we can do a better job of medication selection. And then if we look beyond medications, why most cancer is not hereditary. There are a large number of hereditary cancers, and if we knew you had that risk, we could screen you much earlier and catch the cancer at the earliest stage. And for example, there are about 80,000 hereditary cancers in North America per year. So one of the interesting things about genetics and genomics is the cost of genetic sequencing has been steadily falling for over 20 years. And at the same time, our knowledge of what it means has been rapidly expanding. And those two trends have really created a great opportunity to use genetics in medical care. So approximately 30 million people have been tested so far. That includes 23andMe and Ancestry.com in the US. And the US National Institutes of Health is predicting that genetic testing will become one of the most common medical tests in this decade. 99% of us carry variants that affect medications. And about 25% of us carry either risks or risk factors that are important for our care. So how does ActX work? Well, the patient has to be sequenced either through individual testing or through a health system program. We import the genetics into our decision support engine, and then on the doctor's PC or iPad, we give them alerts and help as they see you based on your genetics. So where do we get the genetic data? We do offer our own test, which is optional, which looks at 600,000 markers. We also get genetics from health systems, from external labs, and we can even get it from 23andMe when authorized by a physician. So let's look at an example of pharmacogenomics. Now, if we take the medication codeine, which is a very common narcotic medication used for pain, it's a prodrug. It works because your liver converts it to morphine, and many of us genetically cannot do that. And specifically, patients with a certain variant in a gene called CYP2D6 are poor metabolizers. And if you can't convert codeine to morphine, you get no effect. And there's another group of patients who have multiple copies of the gene, 3 or more copies of the gene, and they are ultra metabolizers, and they convert codeine very rapidly to morphine and get a different set of a different effect. For example, there's an increased risk of respiratory depression, especially in children, for ultra metabolizers. So how does ActX work? So when you visit your doctor, they look at their computer, which is running a software called electronic health record, and they enter your medications or prescriptions in the computer. And what we add is, as they're entering that medication, we add a background check. So we check your genetics, and if that drug's not going to work or cause side effects, the doctor will know before they finish entering the prescription, which gives them a chance to change the medication. Another use case is when you visit your doctor and the doctor looks up your gene risk profile. And for example, they could discover that you have a 70% lifetime risk of colorectal cancer. About 500,000 North Americans have this. It's called Lynch syndrome. And these patients need to be screened at age 20 or 25 and not wait till they're 50. If you wait till they're 50, it's too late to catch the cancer. Sooner or later, and we think sooner, it's going to become the standard of care to use patient's genetics during medical encounters. And because of the complexity of genetics, the only practical way to deliver this is to build decision support into the doctor's normal tool, the electronic health record. So ActX has scaled many barriers, which has led to a sustainable competitive advantage. And those barriers include last mile delivery, actionable content, and medical credibility. Last mile delivery is key, and that means being built into electronic health record. So traditionally, genetic information comes back as an electronic piece of paper or PDF. And while that might work for one or two genes or one or two medications, it doesn't scale to where we are with genetics. And the way to make this practical is to build it into electronic health record in the doctor's normal workflow as decision support. So where is ActX with EHRs? In the US, 10 major electronic health record vendors have partnered with us, and their reach is 65% of American physicians and patients. Our science team has overcome another barrier by building a large and comprehensive content library. It's actionable and evidence-based and covers young genomic interactions, serious hereditary risks, and carrier status. Another barrier is medical credibility. And doctors have to trust the information, and ActX is accredited by CAP, the College of American Pathologists, both as a computational and wet laboratory. So we have proven product market fit by being adopted by 13 leading health systems, and over 35,000 healthcare providers are now able to use ActX. Our business model consists of annual subscription fees for decision support platforms from the health systems, and for those who choose to use our testing, we make money off testing. This is a new large market, and there are over 500 health systems in the US, plus thousands of individual medical practices, and it's equally big in the rest of the world, including Canada. So in summary, we're the first mover and leader in a very large new market. We have built a long-term sustainable competitive advantage, and we're having a major positive impact on health, helping patients get the right medication the first time, helping to prevent major illnesses, and decreasing medication costs. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. I'm going to call everyone back up to the main stage. Mark, Eran,
We're here.
this is the Inquisition, and it's we get to explore some in-depth questions, find out a little bit more beyond the presentation. So without further ado, I'm turning it over to Mr. Mark Francis.
Thank you very much, Barrington. And thank you very much, Eran and Andrew. Excellent presentations. My first question is about the genesis of your ventures. When did you have your aha moment? And then what did you do to start it as a business venture? And let Eran and then Andrew.
Okay. So we actually started a totally different company. We did technology for wearable devices. And the aha moment happened in a incidental discussion over coffee with a surgeon, and it came at the right timing because in late 2016 we pivoted the company to a medical device company, and we spent about a year trying to figure out what is the right application, the right unmet clinical need, what's the right product market fit, and the penny hit the jar in truly incidental call with a surgeon.
Yeah, hi. So my background is I founded one of the very first electronic health record companies and grew it to a quite large size. And then it was bought by McKesson. And I worked for McKesson for a while. And then I thought about what I wanted to do next. And it seemed to me that making therapy more precise and getting individualized therapy for patients was important. And genetics was key to that. And I knew that the electronic health record companies were not going to be good at genetics because typically they don't create content. They usually have to buy it. And they're also not good at really big data sizes. And if you take the whole genome on a patient, that's 6 million variants. And so they would need help. And so the idea was to build a tool that they could build into their own systems that would enable genomic decision support. And it took a couple of years to think it over. And then we started, and it was a partnering strategy where we approached the EHRs and partnered with them.
That's good. So in your journey, tell us about a specific mistake you made and what you did to correct it, Andrew, and then Eran.
So it was a mistake, but we couldn't really know ahead of time. So we started off by basing the company on selling to small practices and with a patient pay model for testing because insurance wouldn't cover it. And what we discovered, that retail approach of going to practices with 1 or 2 or 3 doctors and convincing them to use this just didn't scale. And so we then realized we had to pivot to selling to large health systems where we would be able to approach 1,000 or 2,000 doctors at a time. They would take care of educating them, and they would pay us an annual subscription fee. And so that really changed the business, and that's really the business we're in today.
So for us, I think the mistake was that we carried over some technology that we developed in our first life as a company. It was an RF-based sensor that we wanted to use as a sensor for our system. And we did not realize at the right time that this is going to be just not a suitable technology for this. And we spent a lot of time and money until we hit a wall. That was a serious mistake. It was kind of, clinging into assets that we created before, being unable to put it aside and say, no, this is not good. We should take a fresh look at the problem. And that was an expensive mistake that cost us also some time to recover from.
Well, I really appreciate your frank and explicit answers in both cases. And that's the sign of company leaders that tend to succeed. So let's move on to talking about the important aspect of protecting IP and also market potential. And these days, given that major players sometimes deliberately violate IP, the best security you have is to move quickly. So do you believe you are moving fast enough to prevent competition, either from potential patent violators or from competitors who might try a different solution? Eran and Andrew.
So as a medical device company that depends on regulatory clearance for our products, there's a limit to how fast we can move. So we can try to rush our development, clinical studies, and whatever we can do vis-a-vis the regulatory authorities. But parts of this process are beyond our control. So we rely primarily on a big moat around what we do. What we do involves deep technology, not easy to copy. And the fact that this problem was not solved until now tells something about the difficulty to solve it. So we're less concerned about, patent infringement. We certainly don't think we are the only smart guys around. I'm always say, if I have thought about something, then 10 other people probably thought about it as well. And my only chance is doing it faster and with less mistakes. So we're trying to move as fast as we can, but we also rely on the fact that this is a hard problem to solve and we have a strong IP around it.
Well, there's a couple different kinds of IP and a couple different moats or barriers that we have surmounted. So on our IP, we do have a utility patent, which can be valuable. And we also have a large amount of content, which is essentially all proprietary and copyrighted. And both of those are hard to surmount. But the real barriers for the business, as I alluded to, is one is relationships with electronic health records. Since we were the first to partner with them, most of them didn't do any additional partnerships. So there are a couple that may do a few more, but essentially by partnering with them and getting integrated in their systems, that prevented many entrants. And while there was room for a couple of entrants, with a couple of them, for many, we're really the only partner. We are moving as fast as the market allows, and we're trying to be present for any health systems that's looking. We generally are showing up, and we have a big advantage over our competitors.
Very good. I like both those answers as well. Tell me about your projected profit margins, Eran and Andrew.
So it may not have been so clear from the presentation, but we're primarily a software company. So the way we solve the problem is through smart algorithms for signal processing and some modeling of the cardiovascular system behind it. So we project profit margins in the order of 60%. It's not as high as other software companies, but that's because a medical device company has a lot of other expenses that standard software companies do not have in terms of sustaining a quality management system, all the regulatory aspects of that, but still healthy margin that we project.
Yes. Well, we really have two different revenue streams with different cost of goods and different profit margins. So our primary revenue stream, which is most of our revenue, is our subscription revenue. And that's based on both software and content. And that, as it scales, is highly profitable. So ultimately, it's going to become a 90% gross margin. That's not net margins, but gross margin business. But of course, there'll be other costs and operational costs added to that. So our net profits will be substantially lower, probably in the 30% range. On testing, the margin's much lower because we're trying to expand the market. So we're really running with about a 30% margin on testing, but that's a small part of the business at this point.
Good. And thinking more about going deeper into the business strategy, do you see exiting through an M&A transaction in the next 2 to 3 years? Or do you see yourself continuing to build, whether through additional capital raises or strategic deals, as you penetrate additional verticals and expand the scope of your business? So Andrew and Eran.
So it's certainly possible that we would do an exit in the next 2 or 3 years. And it all depends on valuation and timing. At the same time, we're building a long-term company and we're really trying to grow this business, and it has a lot of growth ahead.
Yeah, it's pretty much similar for us. I mean, I enjoy immensely of what we're doing, and I see a huge potential for this, and we're certainly looking long-term. But you know, I'm the founder of the company, but a small shareholder, and I have other shareholders who are financial investors. And if there's going to be a good M&A opportunity, I'll bring it to the board, and we'll discuss it. And as Andrew said, this is certainly a possibility.
So each of you are doing a financing. Can you tell me the size of the financing you're doing right now, Eran and Andrew?
Yeah, right now we're looking at a relatively small round, about $1 million+. More than half of it already committed, so we're looking to complete that. And as I say in my presentation, this is more of a bridging over this gap in time that we're in until we get a product on the market where we'll be able to raise additional funding later on.
Yeah, we're doing a $1.5 million convertible round, and we're pretty far through it at this point.
And note to our viewers and listeners, those are US dollars. Do either of you have strategic investors, Andrew, Eran?
Yeah, we do have 2 strategic investors. One of them is pretty famous, is Samsung. The other one, they both happen to be Korean for some reason. The other one is a much lesser known contract manufacturing company who is diversifying its business into manufacturing of medical devices. And they also invested in the company. And we're in discussion with a player in the patient monitoring field. We have some big plans together, including potential investment right now.
We don't have any strategic investors, but we have partnerships with many strategics. So we're partnering with strategics, but they're not currently investors.
Okay, very good. And my ultimate question for each of you, what is your biggest challenge going forward, Andrew?
Well, the biggest challenge for us is increasing the number of people who've been genetically tested. Now, we can't do that on our own, and it depends on many influences. But the value of our system increases as more and more patients are tested and their genetics is on file. And so that creates a lot more value for us. And so we have to encourage as much as we can, working with our partners.
For us, the biggest challenge that I foresee into the future is getting the system deployed and get the vote of clinicians. I mean, the need is beyond question. Doctors would like to see a system like this at work. But getting a medical device into the market, it's a big challenge. You need to create the credibility in the market, and there are various ways of doing it. We're working on it. This is certainly our biggest challenge.
Very good. Thank you both very much. Andrew Uri, ActX, Eran Agmon, Sensifree, excellent presentations and ventures, medical precision, and helping the world and potentially being very profitable. Thank you very much today.
Last but not least, David Blossom. David Blossom is the president and CEO of Skope, Inc. He's a proven executive with documented success in consumer sales and marketing, Procter & Gamble, followed by hands-on sales and marketing experience at Boston Scientific Corp., resulting in a paradigm-shifting model of medical device marketing. Co-founded and built an internet healthcare startup company, currently president and CEO of Skope, inventor of a proprietary stethoscope disinfection technology. Board member at several medical companies and university incubators, providing valuable global customer and product development insight. Impact player with an ability to lead teams to unprecedented achievements. David, take it away.
Hello, everyone. My name is David Blossom. I'm the CEO of Skope. We make a stethoscope disinfection technology. I grew up in the Procter & Gamble world, worked for Procter & Gamble for 5 years, and then jumped into the medical device industry. Spent time at Boston Scientific Corporation, Medtronic, Covidien, and many, many startups. So I look forward to sharing some exciting news around disinfecting stethoscopes today. Think about this. If you take your child to the hospital for something benign like asthma, and that child ends up getting something, becoming extremely ill, or possibly even dying, that's about relevant to hospital-acquired infections cause 100,000 deaths per year. Stethoscopes yet have been proven to be as contaminated as unwashed hands and spread disease. Now, I'm not saying that stethoscope infection causes 100% of these hospital-acquired infections, but they're definitely a component of that. In fact, dozens of peer-reviewed journals and healthcare organizations have come to the same conclusion. Stethoscope disinfection should be required between every patient encounter. Stethoscopes are everywhere. 5.5 billion uses per year. It's the most widely used medical tool in the world at 8.8 million points of service. The problem is stethoscopes are unsanitary. 86% are infected with bacteria and viruses, including COVID, SARS, MRSA, C. diff spores, etc. 82% of stethoscopes are not disinfected at all. The solution? The Skope station. This is the actual device in my hand here. The physician takes his or her stethoscope, swipes it down the throat of the Skope station. The stethoscope is immediately disinfected. It's convenient. Hangs on the wall. Think of it next to a Perel station. Low regulatory hurdle to Class 1 device. We use a disposable disinfectant cartridge. Think of it as the Gillette razor and razor blade model. Very profitable. We have strong intellectual property. We have 10 granted United States patents, 10 granted out of US patents. We use a proven disinfectant. It's called hypochlorous solution. It's the gold standard. Our bodies produce it to fight infection. It's now being able to be manufactured industrially, and it is a non-toxic EPA-approved disinfectant. This is a summary of all the benefits of hypochlorous solution. It is the gold standard. We've already started the microbiologic testing with the Skope station to show that an infected stethoscope, once it's passed through the Skope station, cannot transmit anything to a clean stethoscope that might come a few seconds later. What's out there from a competitive standpoint? There's stethoscope condoms or covers that go over the diaphragm of the stethoscope, but they're not used because you have to open up the package, put it on the stethoscope, take it off, throw it away, repeat every time you see a new patient. Stethoscope alcohol pads. People say, well, why don't I just take my Purell or an alcohol pad and wipe the stethoscope? The problem is alcohol pads do not kill C. diff spores, which is a huge issue in the clinical environment. In fact, it's 3.5 times more deadly than MRSA. Disinfectant wipes. These are industrial strength wipes you have to glove up to use, and they take 4 to 10 minutes to work, used mostly in the operating rooms, etc. And disposable stethoscopes. Disposable stethoscopes attempted to address this problem, but they ended up not being used or thrown away because the auditory quality is so poor. In fact, many hospitals refer to them as Fisher-Price stethoscopes. Our market is huge. The total addressable market is almost $3 billion US dollars at 8.8 million points of service. Our serviceable addressable market is $1 billion at 3 million points of service. Our serviceable obtainable market is $123 million in 5 years at a 4.2% market penetration rate. Let's think about this market at a single individual hospital. Think about a hospital that you or your family may go to. They would use 400 Skope stations. Each Skope station goes through approximately 24 swipes a day. Some high-use areas like the ICU can go through 75 swipes per day. There's 400 swipes per cartridge. So think of this as 16.7 cartridges per year per Skope station. That equates to about $334 of revenue per Skope station. That translates to the hospital as 6,680 Skope cartridges per year per average hospital, or $133,000 and change of revenue per year per hospital. And get this, hospitals already have budgets for stethoscope disinfection, used mostly for disposable stethoscopes to meet the government requirements, but they just don't work. Our plan, as we mentioned earlier, is to get to $123 million in 5 years. And I've partnered with a med device first-in-class distributor, Access Strategy Partners. CEO Jim Walker, who built the sales organization at Boston Scientific, has worked closely with me to put together this very tangible and feasible plan. Those are great numbers, David, but do providers really understand that this is a problem, and would they buy Skope? The answer, a resounding yes. 100% are aware of hospital-acquired infections. 83% believe that stethoscopes contribute to hospital-acquired infections. There's no accepted solution to that today. In fact, 54% of hospitals leave it up to the individual to figure this problem out on their own. Once we describe Skope and what it could do to these survey takers, 88% felt that Skope Station was valuable and innovative. 56% would redirect their current budgets to Skope as soon as it becomes available. And 67% would place at least one Skope Station per room. So yes, clinicians and hospitals are absolutely aware of this problem and feel that Skope can be the solution. We work with proven partners. We're currently working with Nagelwriter. It's a US-based contract manufacturer in Southern Florida. They're making our device. They have the ability to ramp up production to substantial numbers. And the founder, Brett Nagelwriter, comes from Johnson & Johnson Cordis. We talked about access strategy. Jim Walker has built a company focused on hospital-acquired infection-related technologies. He's talked to over 22 executives specifically about Skope, and they believe that a new technology like Skope will get rapid access to every hospital, clinic, and physician office. What are we looking for here? We're looking for a $1.5 million convertible note with a $5 million valuation cap, 20% discount, and 6% interest. We've accomplished a lot. Great intellectual property. We have working prototypes. We've identified the gold standard disinfectant. We have our lead investor on board, Springbok Ventures out of Austin, Texas, Managing Director Rob Neville. We've completed our due diligence, which is in hand. We have money in the bank, actually over half of our round in the bank today. We intend to use these proceeds to get into early stage manufacturing, finalize new intellectual property with hypochlorous solution, ramp up our inventory, complete microbiologic testing with the solution with our station specifically, and enter into early commercial launch. There's a ton of potential acquirers out there. I come from the world of Procter & Gamble. They have a great healthcare division. PDI, king of disinfection wipes and technologies out there. and others on this slide are potential acquirers. There's also been some activity from a acquisition standpoint with some of those previous potential strategic partners. It's a hot area right now. I'd like to focus on my management team. It's an all-star team. As I said, I'm a P&G guy, recruited to medical device, have been in medical device for 25 plus years, have done startups and been part of companies overseas and the United States. I partnered with Dr. Daniel Stromberg, who's a co-founder, chief medical officer for Skope. He's a current practicing director of cardiac critical care at Dell Medical Center in Austin, Texas. And he's lived stethoscope infection for years. And he came up with the idea there's got to be a way to clean these things, because I personally seen these infect children within the clinical environment. I'd also like to highlight Rob Neville, as I mentioned. He's managing director at Springbok Ventures, and Rob is a member of our board as well. We also have Dr. Keith Rubin, Ken Solove, and Clay Davis that round out my management team. These bullet points are taken straight out of our due diligence document verbatim. This is a great opportunity. We're looking at an unmet need. We have a huge serviceable, addressable market. I talked about the strong management team. The recurring revenue model is exciting. We have strong intellectual property. We have a short sales cycle, which is important as we accelerate through some of the value analysis committees that exist in every hospital. Low regulatory hurdle. It's a class 1 510K exempt technology. We have low capital requirements, and we're using the proven disinfectant. It's a potential for a great deal and a potential early exit.
Thank you so much, David. I have to admit, I've never thought so much about a stethoscope and everything that could potentially happen with it. So we appreciate that. I'm calling upon Mr. Mark Francis to do some Q&A with you, and we'll tie this into the other two presenters, which went earlier. So, Mark, over to you.
Thank you very much, Barrington, and thank you, David, for your presentation. My first question is a simple one. Tell us about the aha moment you had and what you then did to move toward commercialization or advancing the project.
I'm grinning. That's a great question, Mark, and thank you. I'm on the board at University of Texas, Austin, and Dr. Stromberg presented this through their entrepreneurial system, and it came across my virtual desk as an advisor. And I've been in medical devices for over 2 decades, mostly class 3 devices, cardiovascular, venous, and neuro technologies. This came across, and I literally picked up the phone, called my wife, who is a nurse, and she said, "Oh my God, I haven't cleaned my stethoscope in 20 years. It's probably dirtier than a toilet seat." That was the aha moment for me to realize this was an untapped market. And this was before COVID, and then COVID hits, and the awareness of any virus or bacterial transmission just went up through the roof. So ever since that aha moment, we realized this was an important technology and project to really focus all of our energy on.
And what was the next step you took?
The next step was to start, testing this device. And at that point, I'll admit this, we actually made a mistake. Our mistake was we went to alcohol, the Perel, if you will, and we used that and started testing that. And we got this in front of clinicians, and they said, time out. People don't realize alcohol does not kill C. diff spores. C. diff spores are a gastrointestinal bug that actually kills 3.5 times more people than MRSA. So we backed off and said, there's got to be a better solution. And we discovered hypochlorous solution, which all of us as human beings produce naturally to fight off infection. And during COVID, this became manufactured in the United States. Originally, it was overseas. And we made the mistake to go to alcohol thinking that would solve everything, but we learned from it and we identified hypochlorous solution. And that's where we are now. So we have working prototypes. We're testing the device, not just from a mechanical standpoint, but with the hypochlorous solution, which will get us into that early stage commercialization and testing later this year, very beginning of 2023.
Well, and you answered my question about a mistake you made and what you did to correct it. So,
I could talk to you about a lot of mistakes, but that
was a
main one.
specific mistake. I like to hear entrepreneurs talk about a specific, explicit mistake they made and what they did to fix it.
Right.
And so, talk about your IP a little bit. You have 10 patents, but hyperchlorous solution is not patented. Presumably, it's widely available. So are you moving fast enough to prevent competition from either potential patent violators or others who would come up with a different mechanism to deal with the solution?
Yeah, that's a great question. I always use a consumer analogy with an espresso machine. You can't patent the coffee, but Nespresso has an unbelievable intellectual property portfolio where only their dome-shaped cartridge can be used with an espresso machine. We're filing patents that focus on the uniqueness of our disposable cartridge, including kind of some fish scale-like components that will scrub the stethoscope without you knowing it's being scrubbed. But the fitting of the disposable cartridge into the scope station itself will have some very specific intellectual property around that to create barriers to entry. We're in the business of risk mitigation. So from an IP standpoint, we want to create as many barriers as we possibly can. But we also believe that being a first mover in this space, there's currently no current solution. CMS has agreed with that. WHO, CDC, they're looking for a solution. And we believe by creating these barriers to entry with the proprietary fitting of our disposable into the station, will be a barrier for any potential competition.
Very good. And your profit margin, what do you project it at?
We expect to, it costs us $10 US to make the station, but it's a razor blade. So I expect to give the Skope station away. Our cartridges I make for $4 each, and I'll be selling those for $20 each. So 75% margin.
Now, you mentioned an M&A exit. How many years do you think before you then start to move toward an M&A exit and put yourself up?
I'll share not just my opinion, but I mentioned the due diligence. We have a very thorough due diligence document that was done by a group here in the United States and really uncovered everything. We weren't part of that. They did the due diligence, a very, very deep dive. And their feeling is there could potentially be an acquisition here within a year or two. Our goal is to create traction, be laser focused with the hospital, environment to prove this technology. We've had discussions with some of the large GPOs, IDNs, as well as several of the potential acquirers that you saw on a previous slide. They're advocates of what we're doing. They just want to see traction. They want to see this in the clinic, used in the clinical space, to see some traction and then get back to them. So we believe there could be potential discussions around an M&A situation within a year to year and a half.
Okay. And in the meantime, do you have any particular strategic investors?
We do not have any strategic investors. All of our investors to this point have been private high net worth individuals, angels, no VC, and we expect to close our current round within the next 4 weeks or so. So we're gaining traction. We just finished our due diligence at the end of March. So this is a result of about 8 weeks of work already.
Well, speaking as a small angel investor myself, not having a VC is probably a good thing in my mind.
Yeah.
And my final question, the ultimate question, what do you see as your biggest challenge?
Biggest challenge, in my opinion, is meeting the demand. I mean, if you think about my slide earlier, one hospital needs 400 Skope stations day one, and they're going to go through about 6,700 Skope disposable disinfectant cartridges in 1 year. We've got to ramp up the inventory, and we've got to make sure that this meets and exceeds expectations in the clinical environment. That's what our focus is on right now. But that keeps me up at night. We want to make sure this meets all the clinical expectations, but also from a usage standpoint, we've seen this used where the doctor wants to use this. We've seen mothers of children look up and say, what are you doing? After they Purell their hands and wash their hands, and the physician says, I'm disinfecting my stethoscope before I use it on your son. And it's very powerful. So the inventory build, this is going to create a large demand, is going to be an obstacle that I hope to overcome.
Very good. Well, David, thank you very much for your time today. Excellent presentation. Appreciate your answers to my questions.
My pleasure. Thank you.
David Blossom, Skope.
Thank you to our wonderful presenters, Eran Agmon, CEO and co-founder of Sensifree, Dr. Andrew Ury, CEO of ActX, and David Blossom, President and CEO of Skope, Inc. Thank you to our moderator, Mark Francis, and of course, thank you to US Angels. And thank you to the people who work behind the scenes, Anil Mall, James Black, Melissa Robertson, and the MF himself, Mark Francis. Lastly, thank you to our attendees for taking a slice out of your day to learn and support the companies on Tech Tuesday. Go to the company websites as well. Go to usangels.co to learn more about them and their projects. If you have a lead for them, please connect. Next Tuesday, we'll be bringing you another public and or private company showcase. You won't want to miss it. Click, subscribe, like on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. May you have continued success in expanding your business.